Hi, I'm Captain Larry Bell with Texas Fishing Tips, and this is your weekly fishing report. Alrighty, up here in Mustang, so we've had our first somewhat significant little cool front that passed through early last week, and it did make a significant difference in the water temperatures overnight for a couple of nights. Had anywhere from a 7 to 10 degree drop depending on what estuary that you were in, so that's pretty significant water temperature change. So this time of year, we're starting to transition over, getting away from the hard packed sand, getting away from shell reefs, shell bars, shell pads, more looking for mud areas, clump shell, grass. Those are going to be your primary areas that you're going to want to be over as you're wading these areas. Mustang is one of these areas that has that kind of structure in it. Again, this is probably just the beginning for us as we start to slide toward the end of October here, and we're fixing to get into November and December here. Fronts are going to be more prevalent. They're going to be coming through sooner than later. Looks like we have another one that may be coming up here pretty quick, and I don't think it's going to be as significant as the last one that came through, but every one that comes through, it changes things for us. The way that the fish patternize, the way that the water looks, the way that the water reacts to it, where the fish move to, how you fish. There's a lot of factors that go into it that these fronts create for us in choices and decision making as to where we're going to be, how we're going to run. Safety comes into things. That's another thing too, as far as the winds go. There's some of these things, they've got a lot of energy that they suck out of as the front approaches an area, and then when it gets to that area, it turns around and spits it right back at you. So that transition phase right there from it, blowing 30 from the south, blowing 35 from the north, all in just a matter of minutes is a important thing for you to realize and know where you're at as far as safety. If you have to run back to the ramp or get out of it or stay protected, whatever you have to do, that's something you need to start considering if you're not doing that, because that's a part of what's going to be moving forward for the next 4 to 5 months as the cold fronts are going to be pushing down here on us. All that said, up here in Mustang, again, the structure's right in here. Bait's been good in here. Been in here a couple of times, just to kind of look and scout and see what's going on. But what we're finding is there's trout that are hanging out here. We found some flounder that's been in here, an occasional black drum, redfish as well. There's been redfish up and down the shoreline, on this back shoreline, all back in here. This is all nice muddy area. You've got some scattered crab traps that are in there. Water temps too for the alligators, because this is on the backside of the Aransas Wildlife Refuge here. There's some that are on that shoreline and that can be, and on the outer shoreline. But as that water temp begins to drop and starts getting below that 65 degree mark on a continuous basis, those suckers get out of that water and they don't like to be in it very much. So something else for you to consider as well. So when you're in these areas, if you're fishing in St. Charles, or if you're fishing up here in Mustang, or down by Cedar, or any of those areas there where you've either heard of being alligators or seen alligators, just keep your eye out for them still. But again, that's the great thing about the water temps being cooler is they get out of the water as we get back into some of these areas that probably haven't been fishing except maybe from the boat. Work this area down here on this back shoreline, this in shoreline to here back to the ICW. All that area inside there, great mud, great scattered shell. Look for your fish. Again, the majors and minors have been very productive in the last few days. Everything that we have caught artificially on our artificial baits has all been in and around the majors and minors. Twisted Tea, the original burner shads. One thing that's starting to light back up for us is the supermodel. Been throwing the supermodel a little bit more than I have over the last couple of months, and it's starting to produce as well. Twisted Tea flavor in it, supernatural, depending on what your water flavor is. Texas Roach, Salt Sassy, is it Magic Grass, Chicken of the Sea, all in the supermodel have been great. They've produced fish. Fish are reacting to them. Other things have been, again, the top water bite's been pretty good early. Then it kind of fades out as the morning continues to wear on. But again, it's being dark early like that is. So we've been getting out there just a tad bit before And when that light's starting to pop, so you got a low light situation that you can throw that top water and you can have some success with it. If you come on out here after you get into Mustang there and you work down the ICW on this right hand side, it's a nice big soft muddy flat that's on this outer edge. So again, with these fronts, what happens is it starts pushing water around and we start having our wintertime tides. Now, how significant they're going to be, it's going to vary from front to front. So you're going to have some regular tides. You may have some below regular tides. When they really get significant, you'll have some negative tides. So this is one of these areas that you really kind of want to target because it's got deep water access to it, and it's very wadeable up and down that. So you just have to be aware of the barge traffic that comes up and down there because it will suck some water out of there and push it back up on top of you. So you just be aware of that when you got one that's coming down through there. But again, work these areas. Work them up and down. You'll find some nice trout. You'll find nice redfish that are cruising up and down this area. Again, work those majors and minors up and down these areas here, and you'll locate fish. It would have popped up.
Oh, yeah. Fuck yeah.
Down in Spalding. I know I've talked about Spalding a lot, but it's just a great area to fish, especially this time of year because it lends itself to lots of different wind directions that you can stay in there and you can stay protected. The back lakes have been pretty good in some of these areas. You know, the first little back lake right in here that's got the little circle island around it. You can wade that thing all the way around, all up into that mouth, all the way to the back here. Drop off into that. Gets kind of skinny, and there's some good muddy spots back in there. But you throw your topwater back in there, throw your burner shads, throw your knock and tail lures back in this area here. All that comes into play in this area back this way. You come back out, work the shoreline edges all the way up toward Carlos the Fingers. These other back lake mouths here as well. This particular back lake has always been really good and productive for the most part. You just have to get in there and see if you've got bait working in there. It has lots of good mud in it, but it is tide predicated. So if you try to get in there on a super low tide, it's not going to be very productive for you. So just keep that in mind. Again, with our wintertime tides that we have and the fronts that come through, it pushes water around, so it changes stuff on you pretty quick. So if you're not paying attention to what your tides are early in the morning or before you head out and check and just kind of have you a game plan in place, it would be in your best interest to do that because those tides can move pretty quick and they can change on you in a hurry. And you might get a boat back there that's probably shouldn't be there and you get stuck. So anyhow, you want to work this shoreline here all the way to the Fingers. All this area here has been holding some fish. Scattered redfish, scattered trout, occasional flounder here or there. Haven't caught any black drum up on this particular shoreline here or any of these shorelines there. But again, that's not the thing that we're focusing on. We're looking for trout, redfish, and flounder, and we have found those up and down this particular shoreline in these back lake mouths in working all those areas. 3 baits has been really good. Burner shad in either or the Twisted Tea flavor. Purple Rain, White Ice has been good. The original, as far as the down south goes, in Twisted Tea, White Ice as well. And then, of course, the knock and tail lures have been really good as well. In some of these, especially in a little bit dirtier stained water, that knock and tail lures, it's an asset to have that little rattle chamber that's in the back of that tail. So if you haven't used those, pick you up a package of them at Tackletown or Roy's or somewhere like that carries those, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with how effective that they are in all conditions of water because they got a lot of different flavors. But the ones that's primarily we've been throwing have been the Honeydew, Heavy Metal, Watermelon Red have all been really good in that. And then, of course, in the Greenback, that's always has been very productive baits up and down the shoreline, in any of these shorelines actually. As you get into the Fingers, you'll have opportunities over this shell in between there in those pads, working those, if you will. Again, the water's fluctuating a lot, so just work those guts that come in and out of that. So it gives yourself a lot of opportunity. You can come on the inside of Carlos here, especially if you got a nice, strong south breeze, especially when one of these fronts are approaching. Get up on this inside of Carlos here because it's a really nice shoreline. It's got a lot of different structure on it. It's got mud, it's got grass, it's got shale. It's got dropped edges, all that kind of stuff that you want to locate and find fish. As long as you got bait working and it's present, then you're going to have an opportunity in here working these areas. Again, incorporate your majors and minors and locate your bait, work in these areas, and you'll find fish.
There you have it, straight from Larry.
That's it. Swan Lake, all this back shoreline, behind the little islands up there, all have the type of structure that you're going to want to start targeting moving forward, especially as these fronts continue to push down here and the water temps begin to gradually drop. Depending on how strong the cold front is, how much cold air is behind it, it may even drop drastically, just like we talked about earlier, early last week. In some estuaries, it dropped anywhere from 7 to 10 degrees, so that's pretty significant. Fish put them in a little bit of a pattern, so that helps with that as well as far as getting them in a wintertime pattern, and then you can start patternizing them that way. Just keep that in mind on this back shoreline behind these islands. Super, super muddy back in these areas back here, so just be aware of that. Now, the other thing, too, is if you're going to fish in Copano and you got these big, strong cold fronts that are pushing there, that little sucker gets rough. So you might want to plan out how you're going to attack these areas or where you're going to attack them from. If you're going to go off the 188 sand ramp or if you're going to come across Copano Bay Bridge, just keep all that stuff in mind when you're coming across Copano Bay in that open area, because it's wide open to that north side and that north wind. So again, it gets to be a little rough, a little western out there from time to time. So as you continue to work down on this flat, it lends itself to really open up for some opportunity in here. You can find the topwater bait in here to be as good. You find redfish up on this thing. You find occasional flounder, some good trout in this area as well. Continue to come out here and work this drop edge, especially as the water continues to, when it drops out. The wintertime tides, if you fished in the wintertime enough, you know what I'm talking about, because we can get into some negative tides, really low tides in this particular area. All over our estuaries in Copano, Aransas, Redfish Bay, all those areas there, that water really drops out, and it changes how you have to fish these areas. Continue to work these areas down here down the shoreline, all the way down toward Port Bay. Again, Twisted Tea in the burner shad in the original size. White ice has been good. The other flavors that's been very good in there. Of course, the one other thing too has been the MirrOlure Little Johns in both the normal Little John, which is the little 3-inch, and then of course the XL has been really good as well. Again, topwater bait has been good back in this area here. If you love to throw a topwater, chunk it to your heart's delight, and you'll find, get those blow ups, you'll get those opportunities. The knock and tail lure has been really good. The Marker 54 jerk shrimp has been good. All these different baits have all produced fish at different points in times. So if you have something that you really want to throw, whether it be a down south, a knock and tail, a Marker 54, or a MirrOlure, whatever flavor that you like, throw it. Fire it in here. All those baits that I've been naming off to are just baits that I like to use and I use primarily, and they've all been producing fish. Again, as we head into our winter months, our patterns are going to change. The fish are going to change. They're going to move, and they're going to migrate to different areas. So keep that in mind as we give you these tips on where these fish are holding. It's not just because that's where we've caught them. That's because why they're holding over particular areas that you want to keep in mind. And if you know other areas that match that, more than likely, if you've got bait present and you've got a lot of stuff that's in your favor, then you're probably going to find fish in those areas as well if you have some areas like that you do know. Incorporate these baits in there. Incorporate the majors and minors into your days, into your fishing days, especially on tough days, because, when the fronts push through, you got a big high pressure that's going to be back behind there, so that changes things up as well. Prefrontal bites usually the best. Post-frontal bites become very difficult, so make sure that you downsize those baits just like you would do during a full moon phase. Those will give you your best opportunities during that time frame. Each day that you get away from a front that's already passed, it's first day, second day, third day, as you get further away, those opportunities become more and more available to you depending on how you fish. This area right here behind this little green grass island, it's a pretty good little area. It's got a lot of mud and shell scattered into it. Work this area. You got bait present, throw those particular baits. Hopefully that you can incorporate a major or minor, or maybe even two time frames in your fishing day in these particular areas as well. And as you begin to work the back shorelines, the west shoreline, as you move on down toward Port Bay, if you've got a boat that's not very tall, you can get underneath the 188 bridge and the tides are right, and you can get in the backside of Port Bay over there. It can be very good too, as long as you got the things available to you: bait, tide, a little wind or current moving back in that area. Work those shorelines back in that area as well, because it all sets up really well for our wintertime fishing. Again, work these areas thoroughly when you're wading them. Make sure that you got you a game plan in place as far as weather goes and what's going on. Have the right choice with baits and colors, dark water, dark baits, light colored water, light colored baits, majors and minors, and you'll find and catch fish. Boom. Ended up with a little hook. Thanks for watching. I'm Captain Larry Bell.